Welcome to Missing Chronicles, where we delve into the heartbreaking and enigmatic mysteries surrounding disappearances. Here, we will immerse ourselves in the world of unsolved cases, thrilling search efforts, and intricate journeys. The goal of this channel is to spread awareness, foster community connections, and provide support to the families and loved ones of the missing. Join me as we embark on a suspenseful journey, hoping to uncover the truth behind these missing chronicles. Help us sustain and grow Missing Chronicles by becoming a patron on Patreon. Your contribution ensures that we can continue our investigations, share compelling stories, and work towards a world where no one is forgotten. Join us in making a lasting impact today. Mysterious disappearances. Hunters found buried, personal belongings vanish. When a hunter disappears without a trace, the speculation surrounding the mysterious circumstances expands widely. Hunters, armed individuals with knowledge of outdoor survival, typically possess a better chance of surviving when lost compared to ordinary day hikers. However, the cases presented here illustrate that firearms and experience are powerless against the enigmatic forces that reside within the wilderness. Luke Kuykendall, a 65-year-old bank worker from San Francisco, California, embarked on a hunting expedition to the high Sierras alongside his companions Earl Ray and E.R. Vedder. While Luke's age limited his hunting capabilities, he still joined the group for social interactions, while Earl and Vedder set out to hunt. Tragically, an accident occurred when Vedder mistakenly shot Earl, prompting the hunting party, including Luke, to hastily depart from the campsite to provide immediate medical aid. Approximately 200 yards away from the camp, Luke began experiencing heart trouble, causing the others to decide it was best for him to remain behind while they investigated the situation further. Continuing their search, they eventually stumbled upon the lifeless body of Earl Ray. The accidental shooting of Earl had no direct connection to Luke Kuykendall's disappearance. However, it inadvertently played a pivotal role. In the chaos and urgency to bring Earl's body back to the camp, the hunters inadvertently overlooked the whereabouts of Luke. It was only upon their return that they discovered Luke's absence. An additional emergency unfolded, prompting the group to initiate a search, but their efforts proved fruitless. Local authorities were subsequently notified, with the initial assumption being that, considering Luke's age and heart condition, he couldn't have strayed too far. Both ground and air searches were conducted, yet no concrete results were obtained. The only potential evidence found was a shoe print matching Luke's, which coincidentally matched the type worn by many hunters in the area. Luke's sons became aware of their father's disappearance and joined the search, offering a reward for anyone who could locate him. However, they held differing opinions regarding their father's mobility in the mountainous terrain. While some believed he would be immobile, others argued that despite his age, he could still move reasonably well. They all agreed, however, that without his glasses, he would be practically blind. Given that he was last seen a mere 200 yards from the camp, it remained baffling as to how he could have vanished in the first place. The utter lack of evidence in Luke Kuykendall's disappearance led one newspaper to describe the searchers' sentiments, stating, "The searchers said that Kuykendall apparently vanished as if he had sunk into the ground. No trace of him has been found in a month's minute and widespread search in the vicinity of the hunting camp from which he vanished." Considering the circumstances surrounding this disappearance, such feelings of perplexity and frustration were justified. This particular incident is especially peculiar because one tragic event, leaving Luke alone on the trail, likely led to his subsequent disappearance. To this day, no evidence regarding his whereabouts has ever surfaced. In December of 1949, Donald McDonald, a 17-year-old, embarked on a hunting expedition for elk in the frigid Blue Mountains outside of Walla Walla, Washington, accompanied by his friend Jack Farquharson. Both individuals were familiar with the area and experienced hunters. The weather was bitterly cold, with the ground covered in a blanket of snow. While scouting along the Black Snake Ridge, the duo spotted an elk, took a shot, and wounded the animal, which then darted away. Donald and Jack commenced tracking the blood trail left by the injured elk on the snowy ground. According to Jack Farquharson, his sole focus was on following the tracks. However, upon finding the dead elk, he turned to talk to Donald, only to discover that his friend had vanished without a trace. Jack spent the remainder of the day diligently searching for Donald but found no signs of his presence. Eventually, Jack made his way back to town, frostbitten and half-frozen, in search of additional help. The county sheriff's office was notified, and more than 100 experienced volunteers were assembled to undertake the challenging search. Unfortunately, adverse weather conditions, with snow drifts reaching up to 6 feet, hindered their efforts. Days passed without any success in locating any clue about Donald's whereabouts. Even dog teams deployed in the search failed to uncover any leads. Despite the fact that doctors informed Jack Farquharson that his frostbitten feet required amputation, he returned to the mountains to assist in the search for his missing friend. The complete absence of clues prompted authorities to thoroughly question Jack regarding the circumstances surrounding Donald's disappearance. However, no evidence ever suggested Jack's involvement in Donald's vanishing. After a week of intense searching, the efforts were called off, as the chances of Donald still being alive were nearly non-existent due to the harsh weather conditions. It wasn't until June of 1950, 6 months after the initial disappearance and following the snowmelt, that the sheriff organized another search in hopes of discovering any overlooked evidence. Tragically, the 3-day search yielded absolutely nothing, leaving Donald's case at a standstill. No trace of him has ever been found, which is, in some ways, the most enigmatic aspect of his disappearance. Over the many years that have passed since his vanishing, no hiker or hunter has stumbled upon his rifle, boots, or clothing, items that typically decay at a slower rate than the body itself. The utter absence of any trace of Donald MacDonald remains perplexing, particularly when considering he could not have traveled far in the frigid weather. 2 years following Donald MacDonald's disappearance, another inexplicable incident unfolded in the same vicinity of the Blue Mountains. 14-year-old Bobby Boatman went missing during a hunting trip, joining a group of 4 other men. Similar to Donald's case, Bobby's disappearance was sudden and unexplained. He was last seen by members of his group walking along a ridge. His companions diligently searched for Bobby throughout the rest of the day but failed to discover any trace of him. The following morning, they reported his disappearance to local sheriffs, who promptly responded by mobilizing deputies and volunteers from the community. Authorities initially held high hopes of finding Bobby, considering his experience as a Boy Scout. However, their search efforts were hampered by heavy snowfall and rain, which impeded their ability to find fresh tracks. Despite these challenges, approximately 100 individuals participated in the search, including inmates from a nearby penitentiary, and numerous planes were deployed. Unfortunately, only a few meager clues were ever uncovered. The first significant discovery was a rudimentary Boy Scout directional sign pointing downhill. Authorities believe that if Bobby had crafted it, he may have been following a creek, which could have eventually led him to the nearest town. Later, searchers stumbled upon fresh gum wrappers, a brand known to be carried by Bobby. Near these wrappers, an additional Boy Scout sign indicating "Stop and Help" was found. All these signs appeared to suggest that Bobby was lost but potentially alive. At least for a while, these signs ruled out the theories suggesting Bobby had accidentally been shot and buried by a hunter. Regrettably, these clues marked the end of any further leads during the initial search effort, which was called off after more than a week spent scouring the cold, snowy mountainsides. A year later, a group of searchers, while looking for a different missing person, serendipitously stumbled upon a hunting knife that belonged to Bobby Boatman. The item was discovered in an area called Box Canyon, typically deemed impassable due to its cliffs and dense underbrush. Authorities theorized that Bobby may have attempted to enter the canyon but ultimately fell and drowned in the creek at its base. The possibility that someone may have thrown the knife into the area as an act of deception was also considered. However, this would raise questions as to why the person would carry the knife for 5 miles before discarding it into a canyon, leaving Bobby's rifle and cap relatively close by. The discovery of Bobby's remains approximately 100 yards from where his rifle and cap were found further confounded authorities. His body had apparently been buried beneath tree roots and partially disturbed by wild animals. The peculiar location of the remains left investigators puzzled, and they began seriously considering the potential for foul play. A coroner's jury examined the remains but failed to ascertain the cause of death, which is not entirely surprising given that only bones remained at that point. The notion that Bobby was killed and buried by other hunters seemed inconsistent with the evidence. The supposed killer would have had to go to great lengths to bury the body beneath a tree, yet inexplicably leave the rifle and cap in plain sight nearby. The initial Boy Scout signs and gum wrappers discovered during the search seemed to indicate that Bobby was alive and lost for at least some time, further challenging the theory of foul play involving the hunters who were with Bobby when he disappeared. One particularly intriguing aspect of this case revolves around the location where Bobby's body, rifle, and cap were discovered in relation to where his knife and sheath were found. His body was found in Godman Spring, the very location he vanished from, while the knife was discovered in Box Canyon, approximately 5 miles away and encompassing rugged, mountainous terrain. Authorities questioned how Bobby's knife ended up in Box Canyon. The possibility that someone could have thrown it into the canyon was considered. However, if this individual intended to conceal evidence, why carry the knife 5 miles and dispose of it in a canyon rather than bury it like the body? The unanswered questions surrounding this case leave it shrouded in ambiguity. The totality of the facts surrounding Bobby Boatman's disappearance fails to provide a coherent narrative. While there may be a simple explanation for the strange circumstances surrounding this case, it remains forever elusive. In many of these cases involving hunters, the most perplexing aspect is not the absence of their bodies but rather the vanishing of their personal belongings. Luke Kuykendall, Donald MacDonald, and Bobby Boatman left behind no trace of their equipment, clothing, or firearms. Despite extensive searches carried out over decades, no hikers or hunters have reported discovering any items they should have left behind. The cases of these hunters exemplify that their firearms and experience had no discernible impact on the inexplicable fate that befell them. As always, thank you for watching. Thank you for watching Missing Chronicles. We have explored captivating stories and searched for answers behind the vanished. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button to stay updated with our latest videos. Share these videos to spread the message and assist affected families and loved ones. If you have any information related to the cases we've discussed, please leave them in the comments section. Together, we can make a difference. See you in the next Missing Chronicles.